saying is that we can do this, but if we don't have an enforcer,
Good evening. It is now 6:03. Good evening. It is now 6:03, and we are going to convene the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Calling it to order. All are present, save for Commissioner Rutke, who's been excused. And the first order of business is the approval of the October 25th Planning Commission agenda.
Approve with this discussion?
yes.
No.
I'm sorry. Did you move to approve? I'll second.
To
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
With discussion.
Oh, with discussion. Go ahead, Commissioner Blackwelder.
So my question is, when we get to item number 5, the coastal resiliency plan, what is our action?
Well, when we get to number 5, you will know what our action is.
So we'll have an opportunity to discuss.
We will not have an opportunity to discuss. You can make your comments. I asked all the commissioners to provide written comments. We will not be discussing it. You can make a comment. There isn't discussion. We are not voting on this. I will
Okay.
speak further about that when we get to item number 5.
Will I be able to ask questions? Because I have a few questions about that item.
You can offer comments.
I can't ask any questions about the process.
Well, I'm not sure what questions you would be asking, but can we approve the agenda and then we will discuss item number 5 when we get to item number 5?
Yes, I have questions about item number 5, and I'll be happy to ask them when we get to item number 5.
Thank you. So do we have the second for the approval of the agenda?
I seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It is accepted. The next item is the approval of the minutes of the September 27th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting.
A motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Discussion. First, I want to appreciate Sharon for writing the minutes, because it's really, really hard to write minutes for dynamic conversations, and I have to write some myself at work, and it's made me appreciate you even more. So in the minutes on page 3, there's a reference to a motion I made about the FIDS, and I just wanted to get it on the record that I mentioned the Randall Cliffs National Heritage Area as well. Just because we see these minutes and these agendas are a record, and it's a good place to get both of our heritage areas on the record. I remember I said there are 2 heritage areas, and I mentioned the FIDS, which Sharon described and summarized, and I just wanted to get on the record that Randall Cliffs National Heritage Area, and that is pointed out in the Coastal Resiliency Plan. So I don't think it's anything but a slight oversight, but I think it would be good to get it on the record. So I would move to amend the minutes.
To read as,
Commissioner Blackwelder stated the town has a forest interior dwelling species, FIDS habitat, and a Randall Cliffs National Heritage Area, and this would be the appropriate section as Sharon wrote them.
and a Randall Cliffs,
National Heritage Area, Natural Heritage Area,
natural,
Natural Heritage Area.
and this would be the appropriate section. And then it reads,
Exactly how
Thus
she
and
wrote
so.
it. Yes.
All in favor?
Give me a second.
We need a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. Item number 4. We're open to any public comment on any item on the agenda.
I have a public comment to make as a resident.
I don't know that you can do that.
As a resident, yes, you can.
I realize as a resident, she can make a comment, but she's serving tonight as a commissioner.
I can step down to the podium if you'd like.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So,
But you have to state your address and your name.
okay. My name is Laura Blackwelder. I'm speaking as a private citizen. I reside at 3256 Canoncade Court, Chesapeake Beach, Maryland, 20732. My comment is as follows. I request to have my following comments submitted as an individual resident of this town included in full as part of the record of this meeting. This plan, this refers to the Coastal Resiliency Plan. This plan in its current draft form is one of the most disturbing things that I've seen proposed, and I have seen a lot. I attended the August 10th, 2023 Coastal Resiliency Steering Committee meeting at which a fellow resident and professional engineer assessed that the recommendations for relocation of public assets and other conclusions of this plan were premature. I had hoped to provide some quotes, but when I tried to find the August 10th meeting on the town website, I could not locate it. It is unfortunate that the Planning Commission is not being permitted to act or comment on this plan as a commissioned body. By suggesting that important public assets be relocated rather than protected, this plan will complicate the ability of the town to secure funding, permits, and approvals necessary to refurbish and protect them. Additionally, I have no doubt that Wesley Donovan, who sits on the Coastal Resiliency Steering Committee, would be very appreciative if the town were to resolve any potential conflicts related to traffic studies that may be required for approval of the apartment complexes that he contemplates, reference Board of Appeals Case 3-2023, by relocating the Northeast Community Center and the Chesapeake Beach Water Park, as this plan suggests. But this would not be in the best interest of our town. Additionally, I am sure that Mr. Donovan would appreciate the town facilitating intense development in the maritime commercial zone by using the opportunity of a coastal resiliency grant to prioritize raising Gordon Stidden Avenue sooner rather than later, over using a grant to fund projects that might address more pressing issues, such as regular flooding on Route 261 across from North Beach Volunteer Fire Department, or protection of our assets and amenities. But this too would not be in the best interest of town. Finally, and most concerning, this plan supports
Commissioner
recognizing
Blackwelder.
coastal resiliency.
You have 2 minutes if you're responding as a public citizen, and it has been 2 minutes. So if you'd like to submit the rest of your comments in writing, you can do that.
Yes, I will submit these comments in writing, suggested edits to the plan, and my letter to the Coastal Resiliency Committee dated September 17th, 2023, for the record.
Very good.
Thank you.
Item number 5, which is new business, the Coastal Resiliency Plan. As I had said earlier, the commission has been asked to provide comments on the Coastal Resiliency Plan, and I asked that those comments would be made in writing so that they can be heard tomorrow when the Coastal Resiliency Plan Steering Committee will meet. I just want to offer a few remarks about the coastal resiliency. The town received $75,000 in grant funds from the Maryland Department of Natural Resources to develop flood risk maps and a flood and sea level rise action. The Coastal Resiliency Steering Committee is a citizen-led committee that held its first meeting in March of 2022. The Coastal Resiliency Steering Committee has held 6 public meetings and 2 public work sessions, one at the North Beach Volunteer Fire Department and one at Town Hall, to engage the public in the planning process. Public comment has been received at each of these meetings and has been incorporated into the draft plan. The plan was due to the state in June of 2023 per the Memorandum of Understanding between the state and the town. The town submitted a draft plan to the state by the due date. However, the state needs to see that the plan is adopted by the Chesapeake Beach Town Council to be in compliance with the MOU and to be eligible for further funding on projects identified in the action plan. The town's Coastal Resiliency Steering Committee is in its final stages of reviewing the draft plan and seeks any final comments from the Planning and Zoning Commission members on the draft plan. Comments also will be received by the town's Coastal Resiliency Steering Committee during their public meeting tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. on October 26, 2023. And now, if any of the commissioners will go around the horn, wish to offer a comment on the resiliency plan, you may do so. Commissioner Blackwelder, we'll start with you.
I'd like to hear what the other commissioners have to say first. Can I go last?
No?
I will continue. So what I was going to say before I was cut off was that most concerning, this plan supports organizing the Coastal Resiliency Steering Committee into a commission with funding and the authority to direct and prioritize a large portfolio of capital improvement projects, separating these expenditures from the traditional budget process and from the accountability of elected leaders. So I would like to see this plan not recommend relocating our assets. We just completed comprehensive planning. And if somebody was contemplating relocating assets like the water park, the Northeast Community Center, the fire department, the commission really should have been alerted to that. This is extremely poor planning. It will eliminate the potential for funding to preserve these assets, and it's just not appropriate. And as the resident engineer said in the August 10th meeting, it's a very premature solution. I would prefer that the Coastal Resiliency Plan indicate studies for solutions, particularly and as a priority on Route 261, where we all know it floods. That's where the grants that we should seek first belong, not anywhere else. Second would be our amenities and our assets, like the water park, like the Northeast Community Center. We should not be receiving and looking for grants to support private development that we do not even want, especially when they're very expensive. There is no low-hanging fruit on coastal resiliency projects. They are all expensive. They all come out of the general fund. So as I stated, I hope that the town doesn't move forward with this in its current draft form. And I've offered line item edits that can be very quickly incorporated that would prevent some of that stuff. And I've written the Coastal Resiliency Committee a letter, and I provided this board with comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
Yeah, just quoting the note from our town administrator on October 19th, to ensure that all comments from the Planning Commission are tracked clearly for the Coastal Resiliency Steering Committee to consider. Planning Commission members are asked to also provide any input they have on the plan in writing through the form which is on the website. I've done that, submitted my comments, and I think other comments related to the town's budget are not part of this this commission's portfolio.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown, Vice Chair.
Thank you. First of all, I do want to say that the mapping and the report actually does validate a lot of what we actually came up with in our plan. Sadly, sadly, as Commissioner Blackwelder said, and I don't know if it's the makeup of the group itself who's doing this plan or what it is, but it seems like some of the priorities have to be evaluated more closely. But other than that, I do like some of the ideas that they have about of who should be what some of the I can't even think of the word, I've just lost it, but how we're going to take a plan of action here. So, I think it's only just the beginning, and I think there's just a lot of things that have to go through this entire process. So, I do agree with Commissioner Blackwelder. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Weaver?
I agree with a lot of what Commissioner Blackwelder is speaking about, in particular, moving the town assets or the possibility of that with regards to the housing at Fishing Creek, the Northeast Community Center, and the Chesapeake Beach Water Park. I would like the emphasis to be keeping those within the town and our priority to go towards that before we look at private projects.
Thank you. Commissioner Hahn?
Thank you. I also agree with Commissioner Blackwelder. My concern is financially for the town and prioritizing the resources of the town. I mean, we just had an increase in water fees for our capabilities for the water going forward. So I would believe that is a forefront that we need to be focused on more than relocating resources and spending funds on that.
Okay, thank you. I have offered my remarks, my comments via the website as well. And I just want to say that I view this document as as it's stated, it's not a master plan, it's not an engineering design, but a framework. And I think there's obviously in the relocation of the fire department, the Northeast Community Center, obviously there would have to be great input and understanding of the finances of that, the funding for that. So I think that I find that this is a very early document that is susceptible to a lot of need some expertise oversight as far as the engineering challenges that are faced by the addressing sea level as well as the flooding. So, but I think it's a good start, and I think the fact that we need to move this plan for approval so that we can get state and federal funding and that be in compliance with the MOU. I think it's important that we've offered our comments tonight, and then tomorrow evening in front of the steering committee, they can hear more comments. And additionally, if any of the commissioners wish to provide further comments, tomorrow is an opportunity to do so. Thank you. So now we're going to move on to item 6, old business, the critical area regulations. We can take up where we left off.
As
The
page
the
20.
town, I'm sorry?
I think that's page 28.
Okay, and the town planner, you have provided 2 memos. Do you want to speak to them? Or just have them be as they were proposed and submitted?
I think the fee in lieu is memo is later, or do you want to talk about that now?
Yeah, we can talk about the fee in lieu later.
The other memo is to answer the question, Commissioner Brown's question about what Comar said about the land uses for the LDA versus the RDA. And so that's all the text directly from Comar, kind of side by side, and the kind of differences that seemed most prominent are in bold, so you can kind of just scan it and get an idea, or you can read the whole thing. So that's what that memo is about. Did that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Does,
Yeah, thank you for doing that. It does emphasize to me the complexity of what we're including with just a reference. Here's the code, go look it up. It's very complex, you're on your own. And that's my objection, is that we're including complexities into our code with just a reference to something for our citizens to have to go look up, when we should be a little more clear and succinct, I would think.
I did think we discussed this last time and we voted for other reasons.
I think that was passed. We voted and to keep the reference. Yeah. Any other comments? All right.
I appreciate the work that went into laying this out for us. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Sarah. Any increased understanding of the Comar regs is greatly appreciated. It could be another career.
Ability to synthesize. is the
It's
whole
kind of
idea.
like Cliff Notes for state documents, but. So it's page 28 that
Mhm.
we pick back up on.
There should be like a bright green thing that
Yes,
stop
there is a
review
bright
here.
green. I see it. So that's page 28B, standards.
Mhm.
So, do you want me, I can read them, or would you just want me to identify where we have made a revision in red?
I have a question.
Commissioner Blackwell?
My question is for Sarah. Did you now read this and you pretty much support majority of these recommendations? Or are you just following along?
So I've read it several times before the last meeting, and again, reviewed it before this one. I support the recommendations. It's a model ordinance. It's been modified for your specifics. And any changes of mine are all caps is something I added, and a strike through is something I took away. But it's solid. So.
Okay, that's why I was wondering if you acted on this at all. Thank you.
So just so I understand, Sarah, these are, you have reviewed this document that you received from Mr. Jakubiec.
Correct.
And then you brought, you made sure you incorporated all the changes that the Planning and Zoning Commission had previously discussed, and then you consolidated this document for us. Is that correct?
Up until page 28, correct?
Okay.
Yes, and any new changes you'll see in there.
Okay, so from page 28 on,
It's, so, I should correct that. From page 28 on, the changes that Chris made and the changes that I made before I submitted it to you for the last meeting are all in the Chris format. So red for new additions, yellow is strike through
okay.
for crossouts.
So the red revision
Mhm.
shows your as well as Chris's recommendation.
Right.
Yes.
Generally, I did not make major changes because there
Okay.
weren't, it wasn't necessary. but
Okay.
yes.
Thank you for clarifying that. So then we will proceed on page 28, and unless you need me to read the entire document, I'm just going to read within the change, what the change is indicated in red. So under page 28, B, standards, number 1, there is the strike through of or near and the addition of or within 50 feet of a habitat protection area listed above. Then there's no further change to 2, 3. And then we go to part 6 on page 30. Commissioner Hahn?
Excuse me, I have one question. I have a note above B, right before it says we stop review here, under 3. I have a note that says add FIDS and Randall Cliffs to the sentence, but I just don't see that incorporated specifically for them. I just see the natural resources and wildlife, and I just want to make sure that is what you have for.
You're absolutely right. I still have a comment in my document, and I think I just missed it in the transition zone, so I'll get that next time.
Okay,
So
thank you.
And where, Commissioner Hahn, where did you identify that? Number 3?
Right above the green, yes. And number 3, after the sentence that stops, I have a note that says add FIDS and Randall Cliffs into this section.
Okay.
it was
Thank
to
you.
specify the specific areas, and that they should be in there, and I have the note still here, but I apologize for missing that in the transfer. I'll get it next time.
No worries.
Yeah. No apology
Catch,
necessary.
Callie.
I have notes all over this thing.
I would have caught it when I went back, but yes, good. Thank you.
All right, part 6, water dependent facilities, page 30. Under A, applicability, number 1, strike through on the chapter, and we have added the word section. That's also in number 2. Same, strike through on the chapter, the addition of the word section. And then in number 3, we've obviously, well, let me, 2, double I, facility under regulation .07 of this chapter, semicolon, or has been struck. And in number 3, covered under Comar 27.01.13 has been struck. And then, yes, Vice Chair?
Ms. Franklin, on the number 2, a private pier that is installed or maintained by a riparian landowner, and then, I'm sorry, number 2A2 is not part of a residential project that provides a community pier or other community boat docking or storage.
Mhm.
Storage. Okay, storage, period. Is that, is that what we're supposed to put a period under storage? So I'm a little confused about it. So it does not, this does not apply to any pier that a private person or a private company installs. Is that it? I'm trying to understand why it doesn't apply.
So it's not applicable,
Applicable?
right, if it's installed or maintained for a landowner that is in the riparian area, right? An
Correct.
individual landowner.
Right.
Or, I'm sorry, that isn't part of a community project. So we're talking about individual property owners.
So,
Years.
so this has nothing to do with a private, let's say if Commissioner Brown wanted to put a pier at the end of it, maybe you have a pier, I don't know, puts a pier at the end of his house, this does not apply to him.
Right.
But
But
it-
if he,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
if he put a pier at the end of his house and wanted to charge people to put their boats there, then it would apply to him. Does that make sense?
I have a question about number 3.
So in Chesapeake Beach,
Mhm.
where this does apply,
Mhm.
would be Windward Key and Rod and Reel.
Essentially a commercial type pier.
Both of them run their little marina on
Mhm.
their own.
Mhm.
Right.
Thank you for that clarification. And I guess you want period after a non-water dependent project on number 3.
Storage, yeah.
I guess you would have one.
So riparian is pertaining to the wetlands adjacent to rivers and
Rivers.
streams.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question about number 3 with the strike through. I'm just wondering what the benefit of striking that is. Or why it's struck. I don't remember why it's struck.
Right. So with the strikings for the major sections, I deferred to Chris Jakubiak's decision making on that based on his knowledge and understanding and communication with you. Did you strike that together?
I actually don't remember. So could you maybe tell us what the impact is
Hmm.
Hold
on that? I think we motioned several times to keep Comar in. That's why
No.
it stuck out at me.
Yeah. We never had the opportunity to discuss it with Chris.
No, we didn't. This was all Mr. Jakubiak's work.
Okay.
Yeah, so Mr. Jakubiak made these changes, but we thought we were going to have an opportunity to meet with him before he assumed his new position, but that wasn't the case.
So I think it's probably a relevancy. I'm pulling it up right now. That doesn't make any sense. It's probably that it was not relevant to Chesapeake Beach. It looks like it's just a general. Right.
Would it be worth reviewing home before we finalize this?
If you guys would like me to review that, I can do so. I'm just trying to pull it up, Lord.
It's just, it applies to the whole chapter, which is
Mhm.
what, all of part 6? And so if it's removing anything important, I would say that would not be a good thing.
So it's actually referring to the commission itself. And a lot of it is, I'm looking, I think it's because a lot of it's already in there, but I can look at, if you want me to look at it independently, I can.
So
I would.
So you feel that the strike-throughs have been eliminated because it appears in the document in another form?
Right. So this particular section is about like the growth allocate. It's about the sections of the plan and how they're laid out.
This has to do with the growth allocation.
Mhm.
I would definitely like that.
It doesn't have
reviewed
to
and
do
explained.
specifically with the growth allocation. It's just referring to the applicability of the water dependent facilities. So section 270102 is laying out how the plan, like what the plan needs to consider. So it's almost that it's kind of redundant, but it could certainly be looked at.
Right, so maybe I would make a motion to leave number 3 unstruck and to ask the planner to review it and address us if you feel that we should reconsider unstriking it. Like, I would like to leave it in. Feel that it should be struck after your review, then you would readdress us.
Have you, is anybody,
But I would need a second if we were to unstrike it.
I would second it. I would like to understand why he struck it. Sorry, it's my regulation side of me.
these changes, specifically, you said, Sarah, that from B on talks about the applicability of COMAR 27.01.02.
To speculate on why he struck it, I am recalling that this section has a lot of areas where things were struck out. What this does by leaving that in there is negates the removal of whatever was removed. Does that make sense? It's saying you all of the requirements from this section are applicable here. So as we go on, there's sections just aren't relevant that are struck out, and those are automatically put back in.
Mhm.
So
So your sense is that Mr. Jakubiec, where we have the strike throughs, remove that because it was negating 27.01.02. Or was in
no.
conflict with that.
Not that it was in conflict, but 27.01.02 has, so the requirements of 27.01.02 apply to this section. But there's requirements of 27.01.02 that are being removed from this section. So I think the question is, it might be good to go through with the motion and then see from, because it's what's coming next that it's impacting.
Okay.
So it's hard to.
Commissioner Brown, your hand was up.
My hand was not up.
Oh,
Was dramatic.
thank you. Okay. So the motion is that we would review section 6 and then revisit it next month.
The motion is that we would leave the text for A3 in place, and we would revisit it based on Sarah's recommendation next month.
And we already have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
It passes. So we will look at this next month. All right, now we're going to move on to item number 7, which is the rules of procedure. Has everybody had an opportunity? I'm sorry?
I think I misunderstood. Just for clarification, were you saying, Sarah, that we should continue to go on and then that would determine whether or not three stays,
Correct.
not
That's what
to
I
just
understood,
leave
too.
working through the document from there. Is that correct? Is
Yes,
that
I
what
mean,
you're-
I do need to get this to the Critical Area Commission to review and give us their comments, and then you'll have to make more changes. So it would be good if we could try to get through
So
it.
what you're saying is we're going to keep number 3 in, but then we'll continue on
If-
to review
If
the
for some
document.
reason it desperately needs to come out, we can make that change, and we can even make it after we have comments from Critical Area. But I'm hoping to get us to where we can get their comments back.
Okay, thank you.
If you can,
And
yeah.
thank you, Commissioner Weaver, for clarifying that. All right, then I will move on to B, general criteria. There's a strike through in 1, in accordance with natural resource article, section 8, is that subsection? Subsection 8, 1808.3, annotated code of Maryland permitted, and the D in development has been added. Then we go on to number 2, where a REB developed, a REB, which would probably be area provided it is. So that has been instituted. And then B, we have removed the word are and replaced it with the word is. Going on to page 31, there's 2 3s, so maybe that would be an issue.
Chairman?
Yes,
Chairman.
Vice Chair?
I am just wondering, though, if we are supposed to be doing more than just looking at the strikeouts, are we not supposed to be reviewing? Because we haven't reviewed any of this, right? So in other words, we need to be going over and making sure we're doing more than just going over the strikeouts and changes. We need to be making sure that everybody's in an agreement of some sort, that what is said here applies to our town. You know, we're just assuming, okay, this all works for, but it may or may not have to be changed. Am I not correct, Ms. Franklin, that we need to be perhaps reviewing this and making, changes if we need to?
Right. So my understanding was that you guys had reviewed it.
We haven't been through this yet.
So, so you haven't, I'm just wondering if you've looked at it
Didn't
and
we-
had comments, like, because sorry.
When Mr. Jakubiec left, we really hadn't gotten any farther than where we were when you came in. I mean, we really hadn't proceeded to part 6 at all. So this is new to the commission. I mean, we may have all gone through and read it, and we may have all individually, but we haven't as a group discussed it.
So Mr. Jakubiec indicated that you had gotten up until you were at grandfathering when he left. That was the part that you hadn't gotten to yet, which is, I think, 8.
I don't remember going through growth allocation. Do you remember going through growth allocation? I don't.
Definitely did not go through.
No, we
growth
didn't go through any of
allocation.
that. Mm-mm.
Okay.
I thought we discussed growth allocation, but maybe it wasn't specific to this document, but I remember,
It wasn't specific to this document.
okay. Well, then what we can do is if you want to take a moment, read the section, and then we can go back and look at the strike through and see if you still feel that they're appropriate.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm sure it probably is generally fine. I know Mr. Kubiak is well trusted in getting this accomplished the way he thinks it should be accomplished. But, I just want to make sure that we have all laid eyes on it together as a group, and have any questions, we all need to go over it as a group.
So, excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
According to my original document, I have notes all the way up to grandfathering.
Oh, you do?
What he did, I think, was he referred us to our own code for growth allocation, if I'm remembering correctly. That's what I'm
I'd have
trying
to
to
go
look
back
up
and
right
look.
now.
I haven't even,
Commissioner
I
Hahn,
don't
where do
remember-
you see your notes extend to where?
Well, I have up to grandfathering. I have a note on part 9 under variances for state standards that he mentioned.
What pages, or do
For
you?
me, that's page 39 in the original notebook.
Oh, I see, grandfathering. For me, it's page 40. Okay. So you have that we went through all the way to grandfathering.
I just have a note under grandfathering, under variances part 9 for state standards. So I, I have that written. I mean, I have no problem going back through it again now that we've redacted stuff, but I do have some notes.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that I can't imagine Mr. Jakubiec like writing all these revisions without us ever weighing in on that or discussing. Like, for example, on page 37, under the item D, under process, there are 4 different specifics, and I just,
You know, I think,
so why don't we take them section as they come, and we'll look at B, read through it, and then we'll go back and discuss it.
I have a question regarding the timeline for getting this passed and out of here. And how
Yeah,
some
good
of,
question.
I mean, because I'm newer to it and I wasn't here for some of those earlier discussions. If we think that it had gone through grandfathering, it seems like we want to go sort of quickly through those changes so that we can, because we need to pass this on to somebody. Time is of the essence.
What is
Yeah.
the timeline, Sarah?
It was just impressed upon me by Mr. Jakubiec that it needed to get over to the critical area commission quickly.
Do you know when it was due to the critical
I-
area commission?
I will get an actual deadline, but I don't have one. I think it is due to the critical area commission.
Okay. Well,
Again, they'll provide comments, right?
yeah.
And we'll make changes. So we want to get it as close as you guys want it, right? But there will be an opportunity to make more changes before it's sent to the commissioners.
you know, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Go
Chairwoman.
ahead,
I'm
Vice
sorry.
Chair.
I think we may have gotten to grandfathering as I look at my old notes. I do see that I have made some comments as well. So it's possible that we, at least some of us who were here, went to grandfathering. So as far as I'm concerned, Chairwoman, if you'd like to just go right to grandfathering, I'm fine with that. And we can just go through that quickly, or you can go back to whatever you want and just quickly go through it. I mean, it's whatever the commission wants.
Well, your recollection is we've gone up through grandfathering. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm seeing
So
that
then
it's possible we have gone up to grandfathering.
I think then we should proceed from page 30 on up to grandfathering, and then.
Okay.
So. Okay. Yeah, I mean, right now, I'll give you a minute. You want to read through the general criteria here, and then we can go on.
So on part, page are we on?
Page 30B, general criteria. Didn't we, I thought we voted the last meeting about the placement of the dredge material. I thought we had made I remember the discussion about that could enhance and be growth producing. But maybe it wasn't specific to the buffer, but I thought we had had that discussion about the dredge material.
I do remember that discussion.
It's about an island.
Yeah,
Right.
but I'm wondering if it is in multiple places, so. Oh, you know what I think it was? We did have that discussion in a previous place, and it was one of these things where it was whether it should all be written out or not, I think.
You mean all the infinitives for this the specifics of what would
I think
warrant that?
Yeah, I think it was a different place where like it was Comar written out. Can probably pull up my notes from last.
Yeah, I just remember us voting on it.
Oh yeah, it's right here. It is B development it's under part 3, development activities in the buffer. It's in the minutes. So part 3, buffer 5I.
Oh, okay.
So we're on page 15, it looks like, or yes. It's 15, page 15 at the bottom.
Right.
That's where that discussion was in reference to. But yes, there was there's restoration of an island is IV4 under there.
So when we have questions while we're reading through this, do you want us to bring them up or,
Yes, I do.
okay? I have 2 when anybody's ready to hear them for page 32 and 33.
Do those questions relate, Commissioner, back to page 30 and 31? Do they relate to the general criteria, or they're just?
No, were we supposed to stay on page 30 and 31?
No, I just wanted to see, no, not necessarily. I just wanted to see, are we going to accept all the strike through? I guess if it's not in conflict, the dredge material is not in conflict with what was previously written, then the strike through can remain and we can move on. But I was just making sure that the strike through on page 31 was not in conflict with the previous one on the buffer on page 15.
Because this is related to we're in the water dependent facilities section now. So I'm thinking that in this case, the desire was that there would be no placement of dredged material in the buffer for water dependent facilities.
Okay,
That would be
so this
my
is
read on
different.
why it was struck from here.
Okay, okay.
So, for our dredge holding facility,
Mhm.
I imagine that's why Chris struck out everything on page 31, because we do have one.
Okay, then that, right, would make
Right.
sense.
Um,
And that's why you need to strike out the previous thing, because it would bring that back into applying.
Gotcha. So that makes sense, but there's a couple strike throughs on 32 and 33 that I'm
So-
not loving.
Okay. So while you're not loving it, are we loving page 30 and 31? Is that okay? We're fine with the deletions and the revision. Okay, now let's get to where you're not loving it.
First on 32, it's just the elimination of the Comar references.
Right.
I would like to leave those in. I think we did motion to leave all of those in previously.
Correct.
So,
That was last month. Yes.
Yeah, and I put them back into the other sections,
mhm,
but I didn't make a lot of changes to this section. So
okay, so,
we'll just
so
fix it in here.
should I motion again or? Or-
You had put them back in? They're just not
So-
reflected here?
It's whether I made changes, like, so I didn't make changes past this point unless I did a find and replace, and it did it in the whole document. So those changes, I think, from your motion would still be made to this section after we're done reviewing it. I don't think that motion would still apply.
So
to this.
the motion passed previously that we were keeping the Comar references.
Correct.
So the Comar references should continue throughout the document.
Exactly. I
Yes.
just didn't make changes beyond the point we stopped.
I understand.
So
Okay, so we don't need to resubmit another
on page
motion.
32, we should have the Comar references. I have some questions about the red text, but I haven't got past E
Can I have a
yet.
question on 32 as well,
I'll have it there, Cindy.
Chairwoman?
Yes, go ahead.
On, excuse me. So on, I guess if you go right above the letter D, industrial and port-related facilities, you go right to the little number 2. I
Oh,
think
double I.
the double I.
Uh-huh.
What what always gets me about this entire, this entire document is how poorly written, so that, it's really hard to understand a lot of it. And I think part of what Commissioner Brown talks about is adding more confusion to it. But for example, there's a comment, such as a non-point source runoff. And I'm not exactly sure I know what a non-point source runoff is. Is it just referring to a particular runoff area? I mean, that's a little confusing
So
to
it's
me.
a non-point area.
I know, I understand what but what does non-point mean? I mean, is there something I need to know what non-point means?
Right. So a point source is that you have a gutter or a stormwater drain. So a non-point source is it's running off the land.
Just running off the land.
Right.
So a non-point source would be
It's
just.
it's not
like-
like a constructed source where it's
natural.
possible that naturally it's channeling it, right? But it's not that we created this place for the runoff and discharge to go to.
Thank you for your example. I see that now that you identify that. I just, sometimes you have to have these examples to really understand what they're saying. Thank
So
you.
that's a technical term, a non-point source.
Yes.
I would
Ronald?
say so, yeah.
Okay.
I'm Googling it.
Yeah, because, that's what happens. We run into, I think I remember there was another word, and I think I tried to edit it and it actually, aerial,
Yes, that's a
AREA,
that
yeah.
is a technical
And
term.
it's actually a technical term and
Yeah.
not I thought it was a typo for area, but.
Yeah, I wouldn't change it because it encompasses
Sure.
more.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Blackwelder, it was only, do you have a question on 33?
The only question would be 33 E, 2, C, and D related to discharge requirements and stormwater and wastewater.
Oh, under E2, C, and D.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I'm wondering if we should put those back in. I can't think of why they should be taken out.
Say that again, please. Of what?
E2,
Here.
E2.
now items C and D, we have
you.
highlights and strike throughs. And we're striking through the discharge requirements of Comar. And then we're striking through the stormwater, wastewater, non-contact cooling water discharge, and other applicable requirements of the Department of the Environment. So I don't know what discharge and stormwater and wastewater regulations we are including if we're excluding those. That's my concern.
So just to, you're saying D2 and CD, but if you look at the top, it's not numbered correctly, I don't believe. It goes E2 at the very top and then ABC and then 1, 2, CD.
Yes, all of the formatting is
Off.
problematic and off, and I am working my way.
That's why I was confused. The second two.
It's kind of above F, I think is what you're referring
Because
to.
there were 3 threes. There were 2 threes the last time.
Yes. So the previous section of the document should be formatted properly for the most part. And then this section needs formatting. But to kind of answer that, if you look at, there's a section in red that's added. So the facility shall demonstrate to the approving authority that the marina or facility has obtained all permits required. So what it's doing is replacing, making sure that the requirements have been followed on the town to making the owner and operator of the facility show they have the permits, and the permits require these two things. So it's trying to make something more concise and easier to implement for the town.
Okay, so I see, so 262404.03. I see that the first one is included. Would we need to include the second one?
So the permits are required in 09, and
Okay.
I'm guessing the regulations and requirements. So the requirements of the permit and then the requirements of the permit are that next section. So if you have the permits,
Uh-huh,
then you've met these other two things.
okay,
So that way the town can just say, let's see your permits, and it knows that it's in compliance rather than having to check compliance with Comar.
okay. And the second one, is there something you can recommend that will somehow regulate stormwater, wastewater, non-contact cooling water discharge?
Right, that's required in the permits.
That's also required in the permits
Like,
for
so-
26.08.04.
Right.
Oh,
So all
no.
the permits,
Okay.
this is saying if you have the permits,
Mhm.
right, then you've met these
Okay,
requirements.
okay.
So,
So you're saying it's appropriate that it's struck out, it's covered in the red text?
right.
Okay,
And it's putting the onus on the owner and operator rather than on the town.
okay.
In E2 in red, shall demonstrate to the approving authority.
Mhm.
Who is the approving authority?
So probably that is either the planning and zoning administrator or the town administrator. And by saying approving authority, it allows it to be more flexible, I think,
Generic.
right?
Be
Yeah,
more ambiguous.
Yeah.
correct. But also it allows more than one
Commissioner
person.
Brown loves
It
it.
allows more than one person to actually sign off on the approval as necessary. So maybe depending on what's coming in, it might be a different person who needs to approve it. We were just talking about permits earlier, in which some permits, they need to be looked at by the Public Works Administrator, and some permits, they need to be looked at by me. So one of us is the approving authority, but rather than listing all of that in here, it's just whoever is appropriate to approve that for that project.
And it's never the critical area commission? Like
It may
that's-
be the critical area commission,
Right.
right?
Is that what
It's just
Comar
whoever is supposed to be approving this, rather than saying specifically this person.
At that juncture.
Right.
How does the owner or operator determine who the approving authority is?
Well, they would come to the town with they're going to have to request a permit from the town regardless, right? So they'll come to the town, they'll submit their permit request, and then they will go on to the next step from there as needed.
Does the Comar code designate an approving authority within the critical area commission?
I
Are
can't-
we removing a critical area commission approval by striking these?
No, because you have to have the state permits. So saying you have to have the state permits. So before you come to the town with your
You have to have the state permits first.
Yes,
And now, okay,
yes.
got it.
So we're keeping struck C and D under number 2. Okay. And we're accepting the language in red.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Community piers and other community boat docking and storage facilities. We've added the number 1, but that's germane because all the wording, all the formatting needs to be revised anyway. And then the addition is in red, does not offer food, fuel, or other goods and services for sale in the buffer or on the community pier. And then A and B strike through.
He just moved A up.
Pardon?
He just moved the strike through in A, in little a up. If you look at the red, that's under A,
Oh,
under the other A,
Oh.
it's the same exact language.
he just, I guess it's been reworded, or we consolidated those two and then taken out the Comar reference.
It was consolidated probably to take out the Comar reference. So it can go either way.
Well, if we're keeping the Comar reference, then it should,
It could go back to being A and B, or it could stay how it is, whichever.
What is the rationale for not offering food, fuel, or other goods and services on the buffer?
Let me community.
Why do we want that restriction?
So it's kind of trying to say if you're having a pier or community boat docking area in the buffer, it's not becoming a major sort of destination and trafficking area, right? You're kind of limiting your traffic in the buffer.
You're limiting the services offered in that. area.
Right, which reduces traffic.
Traffic.
It's just odd to me as a boater
Mhm.
who takes my boat to get refueled and at marinas and docks and certainly buys food and other beverages at those facilities, why that makes sense other than to be punitive.
I thought this was a community-based pier. This isn't a pier that he'd be going to get his boat serviced at, right?
Mhm.
So we're
Yeah.
talking about a different,
It's not really a
Type of-
marina.
But why does it make any difference whether it's
Because as she
community-based?
she explained, you don't want traffic going, maybe
So you
outside
don't want
traffic
The
going.
community coming to the community.
Well, I mean, some people don't like the extra traffic. That's what,
I think it's really
For exclusively for certain
if you're,
people.
let's just say Windward Key may not, if they have, let's just say if they have a pier, they may not want to have just any old person coming to their piers or, I don't know. Isn't that what you were just,
What I was saying is
Discussing.
impact on the buffer, right? So if you're going to have a new community pier in the buffer area, it's trying to minimize the impact of that new community pier in the buffer area.
does that mean if the town built a pier, it'd be the same for the town built pier? I thought this was
All-
just
all
like a
piers,
little
yeah.
community pier, not something that the town would build. I think you would have to have some exception for the town built pier.
Is there a distinction between the community pier and the town-built pier? It appears different.
Very good.
Yeah, I think so it's really, I think, trying to make the distinction between a commercial use and a community use and the allowable impact for each.
But 6A1 says the provisions of this section apply to those structures or works associated with an industrial, maritime, recreational, educational, or fisheries activities that require a location at or near the shoreline within the buffer. So I would think that covers everything. Whether it's town or if it's in the buffer, it covers all those areas. There will be no exception.
I think we did have this discussion, and what we decided, at least I know we decided for like restaurants on a pier, et cetera, was that we have, somebody can, and people do this to the county all the time, if they have an idea for a development that they want to develop, and they think that people will like it, they will request an amendment to the Planning and Zoning Commission. They will present that plan and request the amendment that they're asking. I think we had this discussion, and what we decided was that we weren't going to go wild permitting so many things when we have so many regulatory problems to deal with in just our land-based codes. So we were going to be more conservative on piers and their activity in the buffer. That's what the conversation went like. I, like Larry, I think, I like the boating restaurants and all the things you can do on the water. I just question whether or not we are capable of properly regulating that stuff right this moment. So I'm in support of what Chris did here. I'm in support of what he did here to restrict it to being, more of a fishing pier, more of a walking pier, less of a commercial pier, at least for now. Not saying that I wouldn't, under different conditions, support something else.
So you're saying we would retain A and then remove underneath the strike through A and B?
It would just, you would have A, and then it's A would say the owner or operator of the pier or facility provided, colon, A and B. Because we're adding B back in.
Okay,
Can I make a comment,
please do.
Chairwoman? You know, when you go to page 34 and you go to number B at the top, and it says the pier or facility is community-owned and established and operated for the benefit of the residents of a platted or recorded riparian subdivision. It seems like that's a description and that should be above A, because it seems like A is, we need to know who we're talking about. I think what's confusing me is that it's not written in a top-down manner. I don't know exactly who we're talking about and who we're referring to, but now as I look at B, it's more clear that it's a community, it's like, of course, it's not even that clear, but it's clearer. I'm
Yes,
I'm just thinking that we should describe what this is referring to instead of getting into exactly what they can't do, because we don't even know who it is that they can't do what. We need to describe who it is we're talking about here.
Yeah, because then C continues on to say the pier or facility is associated with a residential project approved by the town of Chesapeake Beach. The critical area is consistent with the state requirements. So, yeah, I
It
can,
makes a little more sense to have no food or whatever if you're in a private situation. So that really should be located after the others.
well, it makes
B,
sense.
C, D. It makes a little more sense that way. I don't know how we added it on the top.
You
there.
want me to make
I agree.
B and C be A and B and A, B, C?
Yeah, switch it around so you describe, yeah,
You
pretty.
put the lime and the coconut
Yeah,
and you,
there you go.
It's
Just
done.
switch. Just assume who we're talking about, and then it makes a little more sense.
yeah, it's hard to get a sense of who the owner or operator of the pier is. It sounds commercial, not community, but okay. So are we gonna,
So I
Make a
don't think we
motion.
need a motion for that. Do we need a motion for that, or can we just realign it?
I just moved it in the document, but if you need a motion.
I don't think we can-
Sorry.
it seems simple.
Numbering it, I just,
Okay,
unless Commissioner Brown wanted to actually exclude all that anyway, I don't know, we could certainly discuss that, but I think as Commissioner Blackwelder said, I think if somebody wanted to add something in particular because of a certain situation, we could review it at that time and make some kind of a variant, some kind of an allowance, I guess. Even though this is code, once we set this in motion.
but when Commissioner Blackwelder was referring to amend, is amends, are you using that in, as a variance that they're,
No, so what they, I don't know if you all were following the request for amendments to the code regarding the Solomon's Hotel. And there was somebody that wanted to do something to the Solomon's Hotel, and they were requesting amendments, the zoning ordinance, so that so that their project would comply. And they came before the planning commission, and that's as far as I read. I don't even know. I don't know if it's up I don't know where that's at right now, but that as an example, if somebody were to want to do something on a community pier or, whatever, they would, and they didn't comply with the code, they might come to us and say, I would like to petition for an amendment. And so when we're saying that we allow something, it's kind of more by right than if we're not allowing it. It doesn't mean nothing in here is going to mean that we never allow anything, because you can change the code. Anybody can change the code.
Takes
But
a
by
long
being
time to do that.
More
That's not easy to do.
restrictive, we're just being more careful. So if we, if we say Windward Key, for example, can have a community pier and now they can sell sodas and gas on it in the code, a lot easier for them to sell sodas and gas on their pier. If they had a great idea and they want to
Because it's in
sell
the
sodas,
code.
gas, and magic, and everybody wants it, then they would come for an amendment and we might grant it.
So if you've got the owner or operator that wants to build a new pier, which some of us want in the community, he looks at the code and he says, I can't sell food, I can't sell fuel, I can't sell other goods and services according to the code. So that's real encouraging for them to even initiate a project because it's already it's restricted in the code. And you say, well, you can go to the commission and ask for an exemption. Are we encouraging them to build a pier? No, we're discouraging them from this commercial activity. So
Right.
that's why I don't think it belongs here.
Can we add a section that allows the town of Chesapeake Beach, if they build their own pier, to have their own, to allow for their own amenities, whether it be food or fuel, whatever? Why can't we just add another section? Would that be a challenge to do, Ms. Franklin?
I'm just thinking about. Sorry. I'm just thinking about what I would write.
It would have to be
So-
under E, commercial marinas and other water-dependent
Yeah.
commercial maritime facilities. We'd have to add it under that section
Yes.
and make it like number whatever, because it's all messed up anyway. So just add number 3, I guess it would be. Well, there's 2 twos and we could just add a, we could add a number 3, I guess. And then just add, Madam Clerk, are you seeing where we're at here?
Yeah.
So that, okay, so you would add like a number, I guess it would be number 1, 2, it'd be 1, 2, I guess it would be number 3. Then you would just say, something to the effect of any pier that the town of Chesapeake Beach builds. I don't even know how to word that. What would be a good way to word that?
But I think it could be private too.
Well, well, obviously some builder is going to have to come in here and probably a contractor or somebody would have to build it, but
Sorry, if you added to E, that is only allowing the commercial marinas. That's not allowing, it says in other water-dependent commercial marina facilities, maritime facilities. So that's not allowing someone that's just a homeowner that wants to do it.
So-
But you would then
That's
need a
E.
set of regulations for that, is,
So we've got,
I guess, problem.
the next section is public beaches. Hang on a second. It says including, okay. So I think Chris dealt with this. So in G, you have public beaches and other water-oriented recreation or education areas or activities, including public piers.
oh, he did put that in.
So
Mhm.
that's
Did you
not.
say G or did you say
On
E?
page
Yes, if we
34.
go from where
Go to
we're
page 34.
discussion on the other
Oh.
side of the table. So I think probably you could discuss this, and he included public piers and included them in item.
I remember him saying he was going to do that. Yep. Do we need, as Commissioner Blackwelder said, do we need to add conditions then to allow for amenities such as food, et cetera, or can we just leave that open? It doesn't look like,
Yeah,
we
'cause
don't
it doesn't,
restrict
it
it.
doesn't say you can't do it
Yeah,
here,
if we don't
right?
restrict it, then
This was more like,
Yeah.
in your HOA development, you don't want that level of impact on we're trying to, the buffer is to minimize impact.
Right.
Right.
Correct. Mhm.
And so that's what that's about. there.
Perfect, thank you. Does that make sense to you? I ask.
Okay, so we are putting the definitions B and C in front of A, is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay, and everything else is all right? So can we move, we're moving on to 35H, research associated and education associated water dependent facilities or activities. We like those hyphens in there. Okay, so we've removed the word of and added to the extent possible language. Okay? This brings us to growth allocation, where we have various recollections that we talked about it or didn't talk about it. So continuing on, page 36, 1B, under the letter B, growth allocation, acreage and deduction. 1B, we've added the letter B, and we specified Calvert County. And then number 3, we have struck through a local jurisdiction, and we've added the town of Chesapeake Beach. Now, is the town of Chesapeake Beach, that will appear all in caps?
No, that is one of my find and replaces. So
Oh,
what that means is we talked about changing,
where it said town to.
right, and the
consist-
easiest way to make sure I catch everything is to let the computer find it all for me.
Okay, great idea. Um, So are we searching for the date under the drafter's note here for when actually that, the date of adoption occurred? Was that the 1985 date?
So no, this is how much allocation is present when this is adopted.
Okay, okay.
So that is a current
Current date.
number.
So when this is adopted, the date will be reflective
What the
of November 15th, 2023, whenever.
Right.
Okay. All right, thank you. Then onward to page 37, we've added the word intensity after higher density. Under D, process, we have the strike through, and then we have all new language. 1, an applicant shall submit to the zoning administrator a complete application for growth allocation that complies with the submittal and environmental report requirements of COMAR 27.01.02.06-1 .06-2. Number 2, the application for growth allocation shall be reviewed by the planning commission, comma, who shall transmit a recommendation to the mayor and council. 3, the application for growth allocation shall be approved by the mayor and town council prior to the submission to the CBCAC. And we've identified CBCAC somewhere else.
Yeah, you wanted to replace Chesapeake
Yep,
Beach.
beach.
Chesapeake Bay Critical Area Commission
Okay.
with the initials.
And now above we have in 2, and this is a minor point, but we have the mayor and council, and then we have in 3, mayor and town council. So, I mean, I think they should be consistent. That,
What's your preference?
probably town council. And then number 4, the application for growth allocation shall be approved by the CBCAC before any site development plan, comma, subdivision plan, comma, or zoning permit application is submitted to the planning commission or zoning administrator for review. Next, we have the strike through.
Can I
Yes,
question, please?
Commissioner.
So I don't know if how this can be worked in. I know Chris was making it easier by numbering, but something that might have been lost in this is that, let's see, a growth allocation request shall be approved by the town prior to submission to the commission. Is that who that's supposed to be, the town? So I think
Where are you referring?
I'm looking at the strike through. I actually thought, okay, I'm looking at the strike through. It says a growth allocation request shall be approved by local approving authority prior to submission to the commission. Does not look like that is the process here.
So that's,
Because we're reviewing it first in this case and then transmitting it to the mayor and council, I think, is what the red text is saying.
correct. The commission refers to the Chesapeake Bay Critical Area Commission. So this is just saying how that, this is saying instead of whatever approving authority, it's saying the process is it goes to you all,
Mhm.
then it goes to mayor and council, then it goes to Critical Area Commission.
Right. And so with the model ordinance,
Mhm.
is that what is the process with the model?
What it's
ordinance?
saying is it's going to be approved by whatever the local approving authority is, and then it's going to go to the Chesapeake Bay Critical Area Commission. So this is saying in Chesapeake Beach, what we have is first Planning Commission, then Town Council, then Critical Area Commission. So in whatever in the model ordinance, it says, what is your approving authority? Is it your Town Council before it goes to the Chesapeake Bay?
Mhm.
Or is it your plan, whoever is your approving authority?
Okay.
And what Chris has done is set up a situation where the approving authority is first, y'all,
Mhm.
second, the mayor and town council.
Okay. And other, it's not typical that it would go to the critical area first in any situation. Like most towns don't send it to the critical area first, or do they? Because
Right. No, they want you to approve it first because
Before
that's
they
why
say
they
it.
tell
They
you
don't
how
wanna
much
be-
you have and defer to you as to how that's allocated, right?
okay.
The town only has so much growth allocation
Mhm.
to give out.
Right.
So it should be the town that decides how that's given out.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for answering that.
So there's the strike through of the footnotes from 16 and 17 and the example. Page 38, number 3, the following shall be enforced as applicable. As applicable has been added, and then we go to F, standards. Again, the footnotes of 18 and 19 have been struck. And in number 3, as defined herein and in Comar 27.01.09 has been struck. Epitomizes benefits, struck, and changed to minimizes impacts to water quality. And then number 4 has been deleted. Under number 5, the language, the CBCAC approves has been added. Page 39, under additional factors, G, we've added planning commission and mayor and town, planning commission and we've added in the respective reviews of an application. Then under 2, we have struck or septic system that uses the best available nitrogen removal technology. That's been removed. And we have added D, on a portion of the tract so as to preserve land in open space to the extent possible.
Chairwoman,
Yes, Vice Chair?
did you want to be consistent and make it planning commission and town council? Or did you want to keep mayor and town? I know you're trying to
Yeah, it should be,
consistent.
it should stay.
Do you want to take out the mayor and, or does it matter to you? I don't,
That's what was in the previous part, mayor and.
yeah. Well, I'm trying to figure out why he included in the respective reviews of an application. I'm trying to figure out why the extra words. Is that meaningful for some reason?
Is that
In the respective
Pertaining to
reviews
it.
of an application?
that it passes through as part of the process?
Yeah, I think it's saying you have a review of the application and that's when you're going to consider these additional factors.
That's what I got from it, that these people are all going to review it, but It's
The
just-
timing and process and whatnot is
earmarking.
designated with.
Under 3, letter B, we've added the word "and" and we've eliminated D, as well as the word "and" in C. Page 40, under number 6, we've added the language, comma, if applicable. And on number 8, we have added including risk of severe flooding, and there's a strike through. Part 8, grandfathering, we've removed the footnote, number 20, 21, and the reference. And then in 2, we have added pertaining to the critical area shall be restricted in the same manner provided for in section 290-28, comma, non-conforming uses, underlined, comma, of this ordinance, except that any allowable intensification or expansion. And then under B, residential density on grandfathered lots. We've added the language "for, comma, or restricted, comma, by this ordinance."
Can I ask another question?
Yes, ma'am.
On page 40, except as otherwise provided for or restricted, is it supposed to be or restricted by, comma? Is that something I'm reading into it, or is it correctly done? Should it be accepted as otherwise provided for, comma, or restricted by, comma, this ordinance, or just take the comment out entirely after restricted? There's just something that's,
I think both of the commas should be removed myself, but
or take out both commas, yeah.
yes, is what I
I could
think.
do that too. Yeah, I could do that too.
We
This doesn't
apply-
flow. I don't know, is it something I'm,
Where?
We're at
on page
B,
40?
page
Yes.
40, and after the 2 footnotes, it starts except as otherwise
Okay.
provided for, and it's in red, comma, or restricted, comma, by this ordinance. And we're suggesting, comma, the comma police are going to go crazy here.
Comment, please, yeah.
We're suggesting that the comma after "for" and after "restricted," it doesn't bother me that the one after "ordinance" remain, but the other 2, "for" or "restricted by," or "restricted," both of those commas leave. You see where we are, Sarah?
I thought I did, and now I don't. Are we under grandfathering, or did we go back?
We're
Yes.
under Part 8 grandfathering, after the footnote 21 that's
Okay.
been struck.
So we're on
And-
page 41.
We're on page 40.
Oh, we are.
On
okay,
the
I'm with
computer,
you.
it might be different.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe because I took
Yeah,
stuff
on your
out as I'm
computer.
going. which I
So
should-
it's after the footnote 21.
I'm with you now. Yes.
And, okay, you see the "for,"
Yes.
comma, or restricted, comma,
Yes.
comma, 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 commit, no.
Thank you.
So I'm fine with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then page 41, we move on to number 3, which has been struck. Then we have removed implementation 3 and 4. We've removed part 9, variances, and then we've added use the variance procedures / standards already in section 290-32F, and therein see subsections paren 4 and paren 5, which expressly address critical area variances. Keep the old section as is. That's a footnote that you made. That's a
It's
comment.
It's a
of
small
Lynn.
point,
Yeah.
but
Right.
up above variances where you struck out land that received building permit,
Mhm.
then we renumber the next 2 subparagraphs.
Everything needs to be renumbered. Yeah. There's a whole lot of.
I don't know. I kind of like the 2 3s and the 2 4s.
It's extremely time consuming, but I am working.
I
on
no
it.
doubt.
I'm sure.
Well, I mean, I'm ever grateful that there's page numbers. I've looked at a document recently and it's might be 50 pages and there's not one page number. And, it's a crazy thing. There's no reference. And then page 42, everything is struck through. Page 43, I believe even in the red, which typically is the language, has been struck through. Page 44, everything is struck through. And at the top of page 45, everything has been struck through until we get back to part 10, lot consolidation and reconfiguration, period. And I just want to look, I want to make sure, we always add we add the period after the subject line, the topic. Okay. Page 45, under B, procedure, we have struck the word required. And then page 46, under part 11, period, local development projects, under A, applicability, we have struck the word local and added the word publicly. And then we go to page 47, part 12, program changes, which has been struck, not using this section. Instead, the existing section of the zoning ordinance, section 290-29 covers this. And again, we are struck through everything else on the page until we get to page 49, part 13, enforcement. And under D at the bottom, we've struck the word including and we've added the language which may include. Moving on to page 50. Number 3, we've struck require and we're adding the word requiring. And under 4, we have struck part 12.f below and we've added section 290-30, comma, violations and penalties. And then we move to,
Madam Chair, I don't know if we need to slow down here. This is when
Okay.
we're getting into
Okay.
mitigation and fines and all of
fees in lieu? No, not yet.
No, this is not fees and lieu, but this is.
it's not
Okay.
page 50.
Yeah. Sarah, do you typically see like restoration or mitigation? Do you see typically this kind of language with a reference to expenses? And is that ever changed with current year and cost of living, et cetera? Or is that just we keep that $1,000?
Usually it's, it's gonna change, but what this is saying is, if it's bigger than this space, then we need some kind of financial security from you. So yes, that would change, but probably not before you're net, right?
Okay.
Unless inflation gets out of control.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have a question. On part 13, enforcement under responsible persons, since there's going to be development again in Richfield Station, I was just wondering if the developer which one would it come under, contractors or managing agent instead of developer? Would that term be used if they did something in violation of the permits? As says
Commissioner
under
Hahn,
responsible persons.
where specifically are you referring?
It says the following persons may each be held jointly or severely responsible for a violation. So C1, any persons who apply or obtain any permit for approval. And then it says contractors, subcontractors, property owners, managing agents, or any person who has committed, assisted, or participated in the violation.
What is severally? Is that
Indivi-
a
it's-
group? I'm sorry?
It's like they could be one person out of this could be held responsible, or they could all be held responsible together.
So severally
It's like-
refers to the group, to all of the, more than one. I've never,
Jointly refers to more than one. So my understanding of this legal word is that
Legal term of art.
right, it means like it could be just the managing agent without it being the property owner. The managing agent can't come and say, I can't be held accountable because you're not also holding the property owner accountable.
I've never seen that word. But then again, I'm not an attorney.
A severability clause, but it's the verb for it, I guess.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I go to number D? And Mr. Kubiak struck out including, but he put in which may include. And to me, that is like an open door to say, forget it, we're not going to bother. And basically allow anything to happen and not enforce anything. So I'm worried that changing it to may include is too vague.
So
I think
you-
it'd be much more, so do you see what I'm talking on?
Yeah,
you
yeah,
see what I'm
right
saying?
there.
So at the bottom, so D, required enforcement action, you take out including, I kind of liked including myself, and instead he said, which may include, and when you put the word may, that kind of opens the door to may
Other
not.
Variables.
It's too many variables and it's,
But it is preceded by, it shall take enforcement action, which may include the following. If you just say including, then you're saying including issuing an assessment and implementation, including all of them.
all of them. But on the other hand, could you not look to you as shall take enforcement action, which may or may not include, I mean, enforcement, as you know, with punishing children, I mean, maybe we'll spank you or maybe we won't. I mean, I don't know what it is, but it can be very vague on how we do, how we proceed with, it may not be any of these. It may not be 1 to 4 at all. It could be just a talking to. It could be just, don't ever do it again.
Do you want it to say to include, and then it refers to those 4?
Well, I think, I know the point is that maybe you shouldn't be doing all 4, but I think all 4 should occur. I mean, this is, I think our problem is that we're too wishy-washy on enforcement. And I think the point with citing okay, you're going to cite the violation. If you don't cite the violation, then it's just a talking to, right? So if you're going to enforce, you have to cite the violation, right? Then you're going to want to stop the activity, I would assume. I mean, it seems like all of these make sense as to what you would do if you were going to enforce an action that you don't want to have. It just makes sense to me. And if you instead just say, may or may not include, it may include or it may not include. I mean, may just seems like it opens it up, even though it says shall take enforcement action, but it doesn't have to be these 1 through 4s. It can take an enforcement action of, I'm just going to give you a tongue lashing, but it doesn't have to be one of these 4.
So you want it to be specific to.
I think it should be
those
all 4. I think it should be all 4. I mean, I don't know why we should be just,
So it could end right
giving
there.
in.
It shall take the enforcement action indicated below.
Well, include it. Well, I mean, had including, you could just,
That concludes.
you could either say including, or you could do it what you say, anything, but it should include citing the violation. It should include all of these. And he had in here, number 3, requiring the implementation of mitigation measures. That should be happening. And number 4, he's got a whole, I mean, I don't understand why he added which may include. It should include all 4 of those. I'm sorry.
Was he trying to make it active tense?
I think he was trying to be generous in not having to administer a fine, which is number 4. But I can't imagine how, if you don't comply, you shouldn't be having a fine. A violation requires a fine. I know if I speed down 261, I'm going to get a ticket. And
Maybe.
well, okay, maybe.
Yeah, I mean.
But I'm just saying, if we don't start saying, hey, we're going to enforce what we mean here, then we might just throw this all in the trash. I mean, this is the critical area, the critical part of this entire document is how are we going to enforce what we've just gone through? How many months have we talked about this entire document? And then we say, but it's okay, you didn't comply. It's, who cares? So as far as I'm concerned, either we go for what it was originally, or we don't do anything. We just don't bother, enforcing.
I mean, if you make a motion, I'll second it to leave it as includes.
Well, I just want to hear discussion. Am I incorrect in thinking that we need to enforce all of this somehow? I mean, really?
If I can kind of give some insight onto why he might have put that in
Yes,
there,
absolutely. I
is
wanna hear-
that you have individual homeowners who don't know, right? So they maybe do something that's a violation and they didn't know. And so you cite them and you get them to fix it. And does the town also want to always be imposing this maximum fine on an individual homeowner who didn't know? I don't know that that was his thought process, but if you're asking me to think it through, it's not so a developer can just do whatever. The developer needs to do all of this, right? But
But it doesn't say that. I mean, the
Right,
problem is we've thrown Joe Blow in with the developer and, so somehow either we've got to distinguish between that, or does that come in with perhaps the level of penalty? So in other words, a little homeowner is going to have a little plot and he's going to have a little tiny thing he did, or, the big guy is going to have a lot and you're going to have a bigger fine. So I'm thinking that would be all relative in the amount of fine that you would.
they're defined in your zoning ordinance.
Right,
Um,
but I'm have the zoning ordinance
Yeah, I'm
open,
trying
and
to look
so,
through it.
this description says up to $10,000. The fines here in 290-30, 500, 400, 400, 300, 500, 500, 500, 1,500. These are all very small fines and finite fines. They don't, that, like, this model ordinance addresses the gravity of the violations, the presence or absence of good faith of the violation, any willfulness or negligence involved of the violate. Like, I feel like the model ordinance addresses it better than our code.
Chris was trying to be the velvet glove.
Yes, he was. He was such a nice guy. He's such a nice guy.
I understand what you're saying about, it begs the question, why have enforcement regulations that you don't enforce? But, the problem is it's all encompassed in this kind of less aggressive fine system. So for example, right, somebody who legitimately was like, I don't know, they tend to kind of, typically what people do is, okay, they take them at their word. They didn't know $300. But, I understand. And, I think we've got to be mindful of, when people make these mistakes, it's impactful. And, it can be damaging to the property, the environment, and they haven't been enforced. So,
Well, I mean, these are not necessarily small mistakes if you're dealing with our buffer and our critical area. And I think we need an education program, that's for sure. I think when people buy in the critical area, when they, we should have something on our website about it, and everything should be outlined, and they should be noticed that, yes, you're buying in an area that's very critical to the future of our bay and our entire, economic system here in this area. We need to protect it every way we can. I know if you go to the other coastline, they're so restrictive. I can't even wash my car 20 miles from the bay. They fine me 20 miles away because, oh my gosh, I'm gonna, So here, we are so loosey-goosey. No wonder this bay gets a C and a D all the time. Nobody protects it.
Well,
And if we don't start somewhere, if we allow everybody, oh yeah, well, whatever, I mean, I don't want to go through all this and just go whatever.
right.
Possible that we would make a motion tonight, Sarah, look at this and look at 290-30.
Her eyeballs are rolling around
I
like,
know.
I don't know if I
I-
can do this. We could just change it now, or we could just change it back to including and make it easy, make it simple. And then when it comes to,
Well, I mean, I do agree that
which
the
it
fact
was always that way, let's face it.
there needs to be absolutely education about the critical area. I mean, I live in the critical area and I have neighbors who they see the kudzu going crazy and they're like, they've got Roundup and they're, spraying it. It's like, you can't do that. But they're like, yeah, I have poison ivy and I don't want that. So I'm going to just spray Roundup. And I'm like, but people don't know. That's true. So the only thing, I mean, if we're going to impose these fines, then we just have to be consistent when later on we address, fees in lieu. If we're going to strengthen them and make them, a violation is going to cost you and going to be penalizing, then we've got to do it. But
Should happen.
And so one problem is we have these fines in 290-30 that aren't codified and not able to be flexible and acted on a regular basis.
290-80.
290-30.
I just make sure I'm clear. I changed it back to including. That is what you wanted to do, yes? Or
Well, we haven't made a motion yet. We're
Okay.
just still chit-chatting. We're chit-chatting amongst
I guess my
ourselves.
question is, would we want to keep
Oh,
the
yeah.
framework of the model ordinance and take a
Oh,
look
right.
at how we might merge 290-30 with the model ordinance while also updating our fines to be more in keeping with modern fines in the critical area?
Well, it's interesting in 290-30 that the fines vary. 100, 600, 3,000, I mean,
I don't see 3,000 anywhere.
yeah,
Yeah,
3,000,
Number
5,000.
two.
Number two,
On
it
number two is
says
3,000.
a fine in the amount of $3,000. And number three says, was subject to a fine of $5,000. And then there's $1,000, and then there's again in 4, $5,000. So we've got variation throughout this. And I don't know whether it's the sliding scale, it's first violation, 200, second, 500.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend trying to incorporate the fine structure into the critical area ordinance because it's all kind of part of the zoning ordinance and it will become complicated.
Can we just make a reference to 290-30?
I
does,
think it's
yeah.
already here.
Already there.
It's already here. Just a matter of changing this. Okay, so I'm ready to make a motion if indeed everybody else is done thinking about it. I would like to move that we strike out which may include and reintroduce the word including. Page 49 on D, required enforcement action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
That does not specify the fines though, correct? So there is that, still that flexibility accounting for the,
It's on number
Under
4, it says
two.
section 29030, so it refers to the code 290-30.
Well, the only reference to money is in restoration and mitigation under number 2. Exceeding $1,000. The town of Chesapeake Beach shall collect a performance bond for other financials.
Oh, you're talking about E. You're talking about E. I'm still back. Okay, yeah, I see what you're talking about in E.
right, I think it's assessing administrative fine pursuant to civil penalty. Yeah, see, I guess my problem is I'm not super familiar with 290-30.
It
Oh.
hasn't been our thing lately, yeah.
Yeah,
We've been busy doing other things.
right. So I would say,
Sorry, there's a section on critical area fines and penalties.
right now, were you gonna tell me something?
There's a section. I'm just telling you when you go to,
C,
it's
yeah,
under
it's
C.
Yeah, it's C.
I'm just trying to direct you.
Okay.
That was added in 2005.
See.
Did you notice it was added in 2005?
I'm sorry, Sarah, I'm not
So
so lost.
that's okay. So 290-30 has one, you've got A, fines and penalties. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you go to B, remedies. Then you go to C, critical area fines and penalties.
Gotcha. So you're right, this was from 2005. Right. Thank you for directing me. Very lost.
We're helping each other find our way around.
Yeah, I mean. I guess my question is there any language in here that specifies the fine in a way that if a homeowner accidentally did something, it wasn't, it wasn't,
Intentional.
it didn't have a lot of gravity. It didn't have the presence of no good faith. If it was an accident and it wasn't that big of a deal, is there anything in here that demands a certain fine? That's my concern. One, and then my second concern is, are the fines enough to deter a developer from just violating them?
Exactly, and that's what everybody
So,
does. They just say, I'll
those
take
two
the fine.
concerns.
I'll take the fine.
Right.
We may have to review this whole section.
So I think reviewing the fines is something that can be done because they're a separate section, right?
Right,
The
yeah.
critical area regulations can go forward and the fines can be reviewed
Mhm.
separately.
Would this language that's crossed out be helpful in any way? 50 and 51.
The right to enter property and administer civil penalties.
Right, well, that one, I don't really understand that.
It gives a
Um,
code
but
enforcement officer.
More
yeah.
page 51, administrative and civil penalties. It doesn't state them, but it has,
Right. So it's kind of, it's tough because your zoning ordinance is already saying what your rights are to administer those and to enter property. So if you put it in this critical area piece, then you have two parts of your zoning ordinance
Mhm.
that address the same factor. And if they're not the same, could create confusion like, well, this is critical area, so I have to do it this way, and this is not
Mhm.
critical area, so that's administratively difficult.
So I would think that we would want to be a little bit stricter in the critical area. I don't,
With administration or fines?
with fines, with just fines, enforcement, just everything. I
think-
guess I just echo what Cindy's been saying, over and over again for a long time. Our between 290-30 and our critical area regulations may not be effective if we don't address both things, or we.
Yeah, so I think we're close to having this piece done, right? And then looking at, I think you have other things to look at in the zoning ordinance too, from the comprehensive plan, if I'm remembering correctly. But looking at the fines associated with it as piece of the comprehensive plan can be done because it's a separate, it's not the same code you're amending. You're amending 290-30 instead of the critical area overlay district.
Correct. Wow. May I finish this?
Yeah, I can't speak on that right now, so I'll go with whatever.
No,
Oh.
we're still. So are we going to revisit the fines, or the fines stand? We just keep it where it refers to section 290-30 violations and penalties.
Whoopsie, may I recommend that we complete this document, the critical area ordinance, complete that and come back and revisit in 290-30, the fines and violations and all that. That's a whole separate code that we can address when Ms. Franklin thinks, and you think we can do that, manage that.
Is
But-
that a motion?
I'm ready to make sure that we're at that point.
Okay. So we're going to finish the document, and then at a later time, we will revisit 290-30.
Finish the critical area
Yeah.
ordinance.
Okay. Hey. All right, so are we at restoration? On
Yes.
50, at the top of the page, we have removed require and added requiring. And then under number 4, we had added section 290-30, comma, violations and penalties. Then onward to E, restoration and mitigation. We have added under number 2, the word performance. In 3, we've added the word performance. And after that, there is a reference, this is already covered in the zoning ordinance. You continue on the next page of 51, which also references, this is already covered, see section 290-30 of the zoning ordinance, which we all have just seen.
One question, Madam Chair. If we go back to E2 and under exceeding $1,000, do we want to give us the option of possibly changing that? If we go through and redo our violation section, do we want to leave that open for us to,
It's,
or do we just want to keep it at $1,000 right now? I think you
It's-
talked about that.
yeah, so just setting, it's not a fine, it's setting the threshold
Just
for
setting up, okay.
where they need to provide financial security. So if they're
Perfect.
putting, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Oh,
So it's right here where it says 1,000.
yeah.
I just want to make sure we want to stay at 1,000. Okay.
so that concludes the review of the critical area, save for us going back to section on the Comar. So except for us re-reviewing part 6, the water dependent facilities, correct?
Right. So when we just talked about that, kind of we got down to the dredging facility and we figured out why Chris had removed it. Or Kubiak had removed it because you have a dredging facility that needs to have this exception in there. So you need to also remove that reference to Comar, or the dredging facility will automatically be back in there. So that's why that is.
So under 2 III, we need to remove that on page 30. Is that what you're saying?
Under applicability? Is that where we're?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So we leave it removed.
Okay,
All other references to Comar are going back in.
Okay.
Except for that one.
gotcha.
And all changes written into the document and stated tonight are going to go in. I'm just leading your motion, sorry.
Okay. So that concludes critical area ordinance,
You need a motion to move it.
okay? And
To-
forwarded,
To actually forward it to Ms. Franklin so that she can make her changes, and then she has to bring it back. So we have to move this particular document to her.
are you going to make the motion?
I will move that we send the critical area ordinance as amended to our planning administrator, Ms. Franklin, for her edification, and then she will return it to us for our review.
Second? All in favor?
Wait,
Oh,
discussion.
Further discussion? Any discussion?
Yeah, why does it have to come back again?
Because then we'll look at the changes that, to make sure that they've all been
Okay. So
incorporated.
that's just like for the base level, like,
Right,
okay.
Right.
to make sure that Sarah's on her toes. Okay, so any further discussion?
Yeah, I had a question. Recognizing that the resiliency plan is in draft, on page 30 of that plan, there's a recommendation that says to amend the zoning ordinance, including the critical area regulations, to require that all required stormwater management practices and techniques for development or redevelopment projects in areas on the 2010 maps as flood area be proven effective with the 2.4-foot rise in sea level assumed as a base condition. I can't for the life of me figure out how we would do that. I'm wondering if you have any suggestions on, is that something that should be in the critical area? Is it regulations, or is this, I'm just trying to figure out what is being recommended here.
Yeah, so there's a lot of chickens and eggs or cycles happening on top of each other. So that plan isn't approved. So I don't think that.
Well, I got it that it isn't
Right.
approved, but it's going before the town council. And I'm just trying to look ahead and see if there's something we should, something we could do.
Mhm.
I don't see what we could do to see that stormwater management practices and techniques
Mhm.
are proven effective with a 2.4 level foot. It just seems completely off the wall and not really belonging in the critical area regulations, but that's just my view. I'm wondering if they're, what you think.
Yeah, so I think with regard to large scale development, it's asking for additional sort of engineering studies, right? So here's my stormwater management practices. Well, okay, also show us that this is going to still work. as sea level rises. The way that, we don't go to you, should you wish to expand your driveway, and ask you to do all that math, right? There's other ways to manage that stormwater. And so I think it's the same kind of thing where we can offer smaller stormwater management solutions for individual homeowners, and we can hold larger developers to a higher standard of how what they're doing is impacting
But
the
would
community.
that be included in the critical area regulations? Because if, for example, the town council passes it next month, approves it, they like it a lot, and they happen to ask you, what do you think of the recommendations? Knowing that we're going to have to go back and take a look at this, what would you recommend we do with the critical regulations, which we're now in the process of reviewing? Would we then want to try and implement that so we don't have to go through this whole mess again?
Oh, add it to the critical regulations before it gets.
Yeah.
So without being super familiar with the coastal resiliency plan as it is, I think that what could happen is that potentially a sentence or so can go into specific areas if this is still out. But again, I'd have to sit down and really look at it after it's approved, and then determine whether it can go directly into this or it's going to complicate the process. I think.
Okay, well, I would ask you to look at page 30, recommendation number 4, and be prepared to answer a question from a council member on what would we have to do to put that into the code.
Okay.
I can't imagine myself, but my imagination is very slim. That's all I have.
Diane? So would we have to approve that then? Would it have to come back for our approval?
But would we have to approve what?
In other words, anything that came into this critical area ordinance, would we have to then approve anything comes
I
back?
would
in?
think so. That's our job.
I don't know anymore.
Certainly, the town council could change it and modify it on their own. But
Right,
I
of
would think
course.
they would refer it to us and we'd have to go through. Or
And again,
worst case, they would give us this ambiguous date, go fix this. And we'd say, review. But I'm just trying to conceptually see what's going on because we are dealing with the regulation now. If it got approved, would we want to get it over with in the current change? Not tonight, but if the time. Trying to look ahead. That's it.
Get a motion in a second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
That's to transmit it to Sarah, right?
That we're going to transmit
I
it.
forgot what the
We will
motion.
transmit the critical area document to Sarah, and she will then review it and transmit it back to us after it's approved. No, we see it after.
I'm just going to make all the changes and
And
send
then
it back
we'll
to you.
review it again, and then it goes on to the town council. And
So when I make the changes, you're not going to see that I made them. Like, right? They're going to basically anything that was struck out is going to be gone. It's going to be clean. That's
Clean
correct.
copy.
Okay.
And then we will, if it's possible to, give it to us, Sarah, you know, sooner rather than later before our next meeting, then we'll have an opportunity to look at a clean document and actually review it and read it as presented and not with the strikeouts and the additions. So thank you. All right. We're moving on to number 7. New business, the rules of procedure. So if I could, has everybody had an opportunity to look?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think it's important as a town body that we should have actually rules of procedure that we would follow. And I know we've generally been using Robert's rules, but there's nothing specifically as related to planning and zoning. And I think it's important that we have actually rules of procedure, and I believe it's also mandated. So now that everybody's had an opportunity to look at, I know Commissioner Brown has presented some proposed changes to the draft. So Commissioner Brown, if you want to begin with your changes.
Well, just to point out that the Calvert County Planning Commission also has these rules of procedure. The rules of procedure are meant to expand upon what the ordinance calls for the commission to do, and give the commission some latitude in the way we run the business of the planning commission. So some of this I drew from Calvert County's rules of procedure. Some of it is expanding upon or explaining, if you will, sections of the Chesapeake Beach Town Code that talks about the planning commission. So I have a number of suggestions, which includes deleting some of the things that are in the proposed draft and replacing them with things. I don't know if you've read these, if you would prefer to go through them, my 12 suggested changes one by one, or how you would like to do this.
That's fine, Commissioner Brown. If we'll start with the number 1 and work our way through.
Okay. Each of these I'm proposing be added to the draft, except where I've said modify. So the first one is that all proposed planning commission agenda items must be reviewed by the chairman before inclusion in a subsequent meeting agenda. The chairman may consult with town staff on availability of resources necessary to accomplish an agenda item before it is included in the agenda. Some of these things that we do require significant town staff resources, time, study, presentation, and we want that because we want to get a good answer. We want to have the town staff prepared adequately to discuss our business with us. So I'm suggesting that the chairman be the focal point, obviously within our commission, but that he or she would coordinate with the town staff before adding things to the agenda. So that's number 1.
Okay, does anybody, do we need a motion to look at this and then discuss it?
I have a question. So under the Roberts Rules of Order, under C, Secretary, it says the secretary shall prepare the agenda which shall be approved by the chair. So if it's already being approved by the chair, how is your number one different than that?
So what is the question again?
So you are saying that the chairman make, that the proposed planning commission agenda items must be reviewed by the chairman before inclusion on the agenda. But under C, under Robert, whatever this rules is, it already says the secretary shall prepare the agenda which shall be approved by the chair. So I'm seeking to understand how yours is different than what's already in there.
I think the two are essentially saying the same thing. Mine adds my suggested change addresses a concern that this commission had several years ago when there was objection to the chairman, when I was chairman, going to the town and getting an analysis from them of the resources required before we put things on the planned agenda. And so that's what this addresses, is that the chairman should be able to coordinate with the town on resources for items.
I just want to comment that, first, I think the language, it should not be chairman, it should be chair. And then we take out the reference to gender. And second, I mean, currently the way, and Madam Clerk can correct me if I've got this wrong, but the way it happens now is that Madam Clerk speaks to the chair and says, you know, what are the agenda items? And then the chair develops the agenda items and then submits them back. And then that's how it happens. No, I don't, you know, the only thing I want to say is that I don't like the constriction of depending on town resources, you know, that we're putting a strain. I think the town, if they, and Madam Clerk, I think she speaks in conjunction with the town administrator, they would say, you know, this is, you know, a 5-hour extra meeting is too much of a strain on the resources. But other than that, I don't think there should be I think the town would let us know if there was a constraint on the resources with what the chair is proposing on the agenda.
Well, it says the proposal is that the chair may consult. It doesn't say shall consult or must consult. So it gives the chair the option, the opportunity. If the chair doesn't want that, then that's fine. Fine with me.
Anyone else?
Well, I think it's always considerate to, when chair talks with staff on agenda assignments or agenda ideas, that you're determining the level of complexity and how much staff time it would take. I think staff would probably say something, right? I can't do it now. But I think putting the may in there, or, you know, I think that's fine. And we have why not put that in there? It looks like there's a level of respect to our staff. So I think that's probably not a bad idea to put that in there.
Where
It
are
re-
you trying to put this in?
Well, she's
Yeah.
lost. Will you?
Under secretary, under section C in the rules, C talks about the development of the agenda, and then Commissioner Brown's his item number 1 is basically adding the caveat that that the chair may consult the town staff on availability of resources as they approve the agenda for the meeting. Can I ask Madam Clerk a question? So when the agenda is presented to you, do you discuss that with the town administrator and say, is the town administrator approve that at that juncture?
She normally sees it. And if something stands out to her that, would present a problem, then of course we talk with you.
I think town resources have to be part of the agenda items, so I think there's a point to that.
Yeah, so this would be section 2, paragraph C, under the current paragraph C, it'd be C1 or something, a subparagraph to that.
Any further discussion?
I say leave it. I say I like Chairman Brown's idea myself. Because this goes back to when we were doing a lot of heavy-duty work, and I know that the town administrator, I know, talked to both of us to make sure that we had enough time allotted for certain agenda items and whatnot. It's very important that we coordinate on the time allotments and the resources available. So I think it's an important thing, depending on what we're addressing at the time.
Well, I think, yes, certainly in our work with the comprehensive plan, I mean, we added an additional work session because the work dictated that. But I think, I guess I just don't like the.
Well, we not only added an additional work session, we tasked the zoning administrator with a number of research projects and additional items that we wanted done before the following meeting. And the town administrator at one point wanted to come and talk to the commission about what we were doing. So that's what I'm trying to address. And actually, number 2 here is a follow-on to that. If requested, the town staff will evaluate resource requirements, estimate staff time required to prepare for discussion, and project when to schedule an agenda item so that it fits appropriately into the staff and commission work schedule.
Can we not combine 1 and 2 and just pretty much say that between staff and chair, the determination will be made as to when we can fit a certain agenda item into the schedule? I mean, that's something that staff will let chair know as far as when you can do it. So I think it would be combined as one thing, right?
Right. If I have a limitation in the hours that I'm committed to and what's being asked, I have to communicate that to the chair about that. Yeah.
We especially had an issue when we had Mr. Kubiak on consulting fees. I can remember we had a time constraint at that point.
Well, the same is true
Same
here.
is true here. Yeah, there's no question.
Well,
Same
I mean,
true. here.
that's-
Same true.
That's what this is trying to address, is a situation we encountered in the past.
And if a new chair comes on board, this is a good starting point for that particular person to read that and go, okay, I need to make sure I am respectful of staff time and resources. So I think this is a resource for everybody as well as, a guideline for everybody else. So I like it. I don't usually like rules, but,
I don't,
I have no objection to changing any of the wording on any of these, but this one in particular. So, questions?
I think you should just change it to combine that chair and staff will communicate appropriate chair and staff will consult with each other on availability of particular agenda items. Or I think availability is really what it is, because your time and town administrator's time, everybody's time on this is part of the answer. So I think you should change it to chair and staff determine um, um, appropriate resources and timing of agenda items. Don't you think something like that would be okay, Ms. Franklin? Appropriate, let's see, appropriate. Chair and staff will determine appropriate agenda item topics and available resources. And available resources.
Well, I personally don't, when we were heavy into the comprehensive plan and we needed Mr. Jakubiec, I mean, that's the whole, this is a volunteer, organization. We're not town planners. This is not our expertise. And it came in the developing of the comprehensive plan, it came to be that we needed to have that expertise of the town administrator, of the town planner, so the planning administrator, so we had insight into what specifically he was talking about, and we needed his time. Now, I understand there's a finite amount of resources, but I think that I don't, I found it restrictive before when Chairman Brown was the chairman, especially the idea of when to schedule an agenda item. I mean, I think that the agenda items are scheduled because the issue is topical and we need to address it. And I think that the town administrator is perfectly comfortable in working with the Madam Clerk to say, the work session is not possible. We don't have the resources, and that's what's happened before. And then we haven't met, but I don't think that, I think it's myself, it's too much oversight about this, certainly the scheduling of agenda items.
Well, I think that, if I was a new chair coming in and I didn't know how any of this worked, and I'm thinking, okay, who develops the agenda items and how does it all work? And can I just come up with any agenda item? I think this is a guide for the chair and for everybody on the board who then reads these rules to know, okay, well, this is how that works. So I think it's a guide and, I mean, you can say okay, instead of will determine, may, here, we'll put the chair and staff may determine appropriate agenda item topics and available resources needed.
I think actually Chairman Brown's number 1 gives more power to the chair than C. Because in C, the town clerk develops the agenda and then the chair passes it. 1, the two of you are coordinating with each other.
But Madam Clerk, you don't develop you advise the chair agenda for the upcoming meeting is needed. You don't develop the agenda yourself. You remind the chair that the chair needs to develop the agenda and then submit it to you.
Yes. And then I do a draft, take it
Right,
back
and
to
then-
you, and then you.
The chair approves after that discussion. So the Madam Clerk is not developing the agenda for the meeting.
Just preparing.
Right, that's just what this says, though.
No, it doesn't.
That's
It
the
says
town
the
clerk.
secretary shall prepare the agenda, which shall be approved by the chair.
But
That wouldn't hurt it with the secretary then?
It's written
If that
poorly.
makes more
It
sense.
is written poorly, again. But I think the point is that the chair doesn't really do the agenda in a little bubble. She really works, or he really works with the planner. I mean, usually.
So really, C should say the secretary shall prepare the agenda which has been approved, has been written or submitted by has been, offered by the chair, because the Madam Secretary, Madam Clerk, all she does is make the draft of the agenda after the chair has made it. She doesn't, Madam Clerk does not make the agenda. So maybe the language here needs to, the secretary shall prepare the agenda, which has been provided by the chair, because that's the reality.
As opposed to approved by the chair? I'm not sure.
Well, you
The
could say
difference, but-
approved and provided, but I mean, if if you'd rather that has been, provided by the chair. I mean, you're saying inherently that you're just supposing that if the chair provided the agenda, that the chair approved it. But
Well,
if
first
you
of all,
don't want to make that assumption, then you could say provided and approved by the chair.
why don't we first of all change secretary to clerk? Can we not at least change the title from secretary to clerk? And then we know-
Sure.
I mean, I think we should be,
2023. Let's do it.
let's change that and then let's rewrite it as you were saying. And I still say that it should be something in there that says that the chair and the planning administrator work together on the agenda, because it's essential that the chair can't do it in a vacuum. That would be
So it's
something.
town clerk is the title. Is that correct,
Town clerk.
Madam Clerk? Town clerk? Or is
Call
it,
myself commission clerk for the commission.
well, your
That's how I-
preference.
That's how I sign the minutes.
Okay, that's how you sign a commission clerk?
Mhm.
And that takes out the
Don't
Well, but what is your job title, though? Your
Tax
official job title is
I? Town clerk.
town clerk. So I think we should put town clerk. Otherwise, we get really kind of confused.
Are there any,
But she could be
I'm
could,
town clerk for the town council.
so
I am
you're the
commission
town clerk
for the commission. I'm board clerk for the Board of Appeals.
So your title changes, so town clerk, but you sign documents related to planning and zoning, commissioner clerk,
Commission clerk.
commission clerk. So that's probably, and that's specific to planning and zoning?
Yes.
Okay, then that's what I think, because this is regarding planning and zoning.
Commission, yeah.
Okay, fine, commission clerk, that's.
But I'll fondly refer
I
you
don't
as
care.
Madam Clerk.
So what did we decide about the top part, though? Because I really think
Well,
Commissioner Brown has a point about identifying how the agenda comes together. I do think that's important.
yeah, so I'll make the motion again that we adopt under section 2, paragraph C, the commission clerk, one subparagraph that says all proposed planning commission agenda items must be approved by the chair before inclusion in a subsequent meeting agenda. The chair may consult the town staff on availability of resources necessary to accomplish an agenda item before it is included on the agenda. The chair and staff may determine appropriate agenda topics and availability of resources needed.
I'll second that. That's fine.
All in favor?
Bye.
Okay?
All opposed? Aye.
Aye.
So it's 3-3?
Just so I'm understanding, you're incorporating language of cooperation between the chair
Yes,
and the town.
yes. I wanted something that says that they both work together on establishing the agenda.
I think that's. the
Because that's-
current process
That has to
anyways,
be,
so I
it
would
has
be
to be.
in Favor of that, I don't think that's.
But it's 3-3, so it goes down.
But would we then, like, say the chair wants an item on the agenda? Left on the agenda as a placeholder.
But the town planner is going to come back and say, oh, yeah, okay, that's fine, put it in, that's great,
Right.
put in there. I mean, they're not going to say no to
No,
something
yeah.
the chair wants to put in there,
Well-
but if you don't consult with the planner, you're never going to be able to
Right.
identify, you're not going to have any assistance from the planner. So it seems
Well,
like we need to.
Yeah, I don't think this is unreasonable. I don't think this is unreasonable at all. And I would say, though, I guess.
But I
any
don't, when
item-
the chair develops the agenda, the chair does not consult unless right now we're at a meeting. And this is what happened previously when we were on the comprehensive plan. We said to the town planner, we need this document by this date because we need to review it. And then the strain of that and the resource, the impact of our request became impactful. But, I think it behooves the planner to say, that's not feasible. I can't do that. So I think that, otherwise that would be discussed here at the meeting before the next meeting about what you would be able to address. But
I was just gonna say, I'm just not sure if what you're talking about is additions sort of later on, because you kind of know what your agenda is at the end of this meeting, right? So I have an expectation of my planning my time for the next month. So it might be just that if something comes up kind of a week before, how much work is that going to take? And is it possible to add it to the agenda? Like, I feel like that's a courtesy that you would give me anyway, right?
right.
So I don't know if I'm not sure the dynamics of it, but I think that's what it's just trying to codify that courtesy.
So in recent, when it came that we were going to review the coastal resilience, or we were going to give comments to the coastal resiliency plan, the
Right.
town planner was not familiar with the document, but the town administrator spoke to the town planner and said, no, it's comments only. You do not need to review that. So I think if something comes up where they see an assignment that's impactful or necessarily not in the realm or needed by the town planner, then I think it's eliminated.
Right.
I have worked under chairs, none here, of course, that bulldoze through and they don't consult. And then you can tell that there's a disconnect between staff and chair, and it doesn't flow as well because there's a lack of communication. And that's the only reason why I would say that Commissioner Brown, you could put the may in there, may consult or may whatever, but I think there should be something that addresses the idea that you're somewhat in communication with the planning department when you're coming up with your agenda.
She's become a department now.
Well, I mean, it should be a department. But anyway, that's.
Yes,
I
she's
guess
a
we
part
wanted-
of one
I guess we voted
department.
on it.
That's for sure.
We had a vote, I'm not sure.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
we already
so we
voted,
have a
I'm sorry.
vote,
What
3
was
to
the
3.
result of the vote?
3-3.
Well, we already voted. Or did you vote? Or did you not vote?
I voted in favor of.
Of something that addressed,
The coordinating. language.
coordinate.
Who opposed? This 3?
The left,
Left.
everything to the left.
Okay.
All right, so moving on. In section 4, let's see, section 4, currently, or as proposed, it's not adopted yet. But as proposed, says notice of all meetings of the planning commission shall be made as prescribed by the zoning ordinance. Notification shall follow the procedures outlined in section 29032D of the town code. What I propose is that we briefly review what's in section 29032E, and I would replace that with, as it would read, section 4, notice and objective is to inform the public of issues being considered by the planning commission by posting on the town website the future meeting agenda 2 weeks prior to a planning commission meeting. Now, that's not in section 32E, the 2 weeks, but it seems to me if we want to attract the public to come and listen to our meetings, we need to give them adequate notice of what is going to be discussed. And so the 2 weeks is an arbitrary number, but I think it's appropriate to give the public adequate notice.
Madam Clerk, what is, when is the agenda posted currently?
As soon as I get it,
Oh,
I mean.
as soon as the chair does what they're supposed to do? Is
I
that
can say that
usually,
it's not on there 2 weeks beforehand.
pardon me?
I can say that it's not on there 2 weeks beforehand.
Okay.
I think 2 weeks is high in the sky for.
Would be nice.
The town council gets it an hour in advance sometimes. I do agree, however, that,
An hour?
I mean, the agendas, I've seen the agendas are revised right up to the minute. Revised, yes. And I've seen them posted on the day of. So I do agree with what Commissioner Brown is saying, that it should be somewhat reasonably. Anybody looking at the agenda, I would say start with 3 days and work towards improvement. Because right now we don't do it. Maybe a week. Very pie in the sky.
Madam Clerk, what is the, I mean, what do you think? You do the postings for the public hearings, you do, and other meetings where we're trying to, you also do the, the mailing about the notice of a hearing that's coming up. What do you think, is a proper, reasonable time to include the public in the meeting?
I think you should at least have it posted 7 days before the meeting.
Minimum.
And then a hearing is 10 days by regulation. So
No,
a
the other-
hearing would be 10 days.
The other part of that is it's notice to our fellow commissioners of what's going to be discussed, and so you can prepare for a meeting. Getting it 3 days in advance is just, I mean, on Monday for a meeting on Wednesday, that I would say is unsatisfactory.
I don't like that either. I was trying to be,
Trying to be extreme.
I wasn't trying to be extreme. I got a stack this big about group homes an hour before our meeting, and I didn't appreciate that. I'm just trying to be reasonable about what we can do, given what we've been doing. But 7 days is great. I think that's great. We can hear to that. I think that's a big improvement.
Once I get it, I can post it.
All right, any further discussion?
I'm just concerned about, it's just saying posting on the town website. You also send it out in notices on the email too, right?
The town administrator does the e-blasts.
Okay. I don't go to the town website. I go to the emails.
She sends us out.
And an e-blast of the agenda?
Well, it'll say the meetings that are like for the month. And then it'll have a place where there it says, click here to view agenda, which would be whatever I post on the website.
And that
But she
comes
sends
out.
that out to whoever signed up for emails from the town. It goes out all over
But
town.
that's not necessarily any particular time before a meeting, because that also has the town council meetings and the town council
Yeah,
work
she does
sessions.
these every week.
So when she has the information available, it would be there. But
Once she
if-
has the agenda.
if the agenda wasn't
information,
already posted on the website, it wouldn't be in this blast that you can click on this.
Will be, but.
The
maybe-
meeting, but not the
but
agenda.
Not the agenda. It can't be
Yeah.
put there until I get it.
Yeah. And we're talking about the agenda.
Now, and on 29032, they talk about hearings, and hearings have a little bit of different deadline. You're talking 15 days. They have a 15-day deadline. So if you're doing a public hearing, that's a little bit, they've got it in the codified 15 days. So, I mean, if we could go to 15 days for everything, wouldn't that be something? I don't know why we couldn't do that, actually. That's more than 2 weeks, of course, but
15 days?
why couldn't we do that? I mean, we're at a point now, I don't see why we couldn't do that. If you can get a hearing notice in 15 days, you should be able to do an agenda.
Well, and that raises the question, is a site plan review a hearing?
Yes, you have to have a hearing.
On a site plan review?
For many, yeah, I think
it's going to
for
always
maybe
be a
all, let me
hearing.
see here. Maybe not for all of them, no, but if you had,
I think 15 days is pretty lofty myself, but,
well, then we should make an exclusion for public hearings, which is 15 days, but has to be noticed. But I think having an agenda, if we can have the agenda by at least 7 days.
yeah,
For sure.
yeah, yeah.
I was just looking to see if we had codified that anywhere in here, but I don't see it.
I'm not sure. It's
Did you?
I'm not sure it's codified that the planning commission has to have a,
An agenda?
no, has to have a, what'd you call it? Sorry,
Public hearing?
public hearing on,
It's 15 days to,
that's for the town council. Where does it say that the planning commission has to have?
it says Planning and Zoning Commission. It says right in here. It says right in here.
Well,
but-
Madam Chair, Madam Clerk, when do we, is it 15 days for the Planning and Zoning Commission when we have a public hearing?
A public hearing needs to be posted for 2 weeks or advertised for 2 weeks.
Regardless of whether it's town council or planning and zoning?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, public hearing for
Okay, 2
everything.
weeks.
Mhm.
Okay. So, but we're just talking the agenda. That's what's at hand here. So what is, are we ready to make a motion about? I mean, I think 7 days is viable. 2 weeks I think is, when one of you serve as the chair, you can have the 3 weeks, but
I'm just trying to see if we have it in here, but I don't.
also in lieu of that, while you're still considering, it is 2,100 hours, 9 o'clock. We've been here 3 hours, although enjoyable. Are we going to continue on, or?
I think we should try and well, I don't know if anybody can deal with it, but if we can finish at least what we started here, because.
Wait, first,
And start.
well, let's make a motion for that first, because I'm seeing that that commissioners are tired. So
okay.
let's make a motion. Should we stop meeting and reconvene this discussion next meeting, or should we power through All in favor? That's a second to the motion?
The motion is
That
to do
we,
either or? which
that we
one?
continue on,
Okay, the motion is to continue on.
yes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. You wimps. You.
Now, settle down over there, Vice Chair.
I just want to finish that one.
We're not about name calling here. All right, so can we just finish this one item?
Oh, that's all I wanted to do.
Number 4. So the motion for the agenda submittal, do we agree that it's 7 days or is there further discussion?
This is definitely a good start.
Any further discussion? See none, hearing none.
So the amendment would have that section 4 of the proposed rules of procedure read, an objective is to inform the public of issues being considered by the commission by posting on the town website the future meeting agenda 7 days prior to planning commission meetings.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Better do it, because if we don't, Mr. Blitz is gonna have it all up and.
All right, motion passes. Anyone interested in doing comments by commissioners, or are we just done? Our next meeting. I thought we rescheduled
Oh, I think we
that.
rescheduled it.
We changed the
It's
date
to the
in
20
November.
Yeah, November 22nd?
That's not the
No,
date.
that's
No, that,
Thanksgiving.
oh, the 29th. Then
That's
did
not
we
the
move it
date
back?
either. It's either the 13th or the 15th, and December is either the 13th or 15th. I don't know how
Oh.
it falls.
It would have, well, 15th's a Wednesday.
Be.
Okay. So Commissioner Hahn, next meeting is November 15th.
Thank you very much.
Oh my God, the agenda's due tomorrow. Lord. Okay. So does anybody want to do or do we just want to, well, we've made a motion, so we will adjourn.
Did we make a motion to adjourn?
We're not going to continue, so,
Oh, we have to make a motion to adjourn.
okay, does anybody want
Make a
to
motion to adjourn.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Oh, I'm sorry. The next meeting again, when would?
November 15th, Wednesday. Focus, people.
Yeah, I know. I got
Okay.
that.
Means the agenda is due when?
That's what Madam Clerk says.